Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us as we share our presentation, Spring into Action Transition. My name is Genevieve Meyer from the Special Education Services Family and Community Connection. Please turn off your mic and your camera if you may, so everyone can hear our presentation. Tonight, I am joined by my colleagues, Linda Jenkins, who will be hosting, Annie Bush, who will be closing our event, and Audrey Jones-Langston, who is helping with technology. Tonight's presentation is presented by Brent Branham and Stephanie from the middle school team and Stephanie Hinnett from the high school team. Melissa Weber, Director of Programming, and Bruce Hinnett, Senior Administrator from the middle school team, are also here. We would like to give a special thank you to Jill.
This is useless. I can't hear.
Superintendent, for allowing us to present this information to you. Please mute your mics and turn off your cameras. This will help eliminate background noise and distractions and limit distractions during the presentation. The chat feature will be closed during the presentation. However, many of you submitted questions during registration, and these will be answered during this presentation or in future presentations. If you submitted a specific question about your student, a member of the Family and Community Connections team will contact you directly to respond to your question while ensuring confidentiality. Please remain in this session until the end of the presentation so you may provide our team with your feedback on the information shared this evening. Before I hand it over to my colleagues, I would like to take a few moments to tell you a little bit about our Family and Community Connections team. The Family and Community Connections team provides parent engagement opportunities to support you, families. As you review our mission statement, you will see that the goal of our team is to inform, empower, and facilitate. We support families by providing parent trainings, responding to your questions and concerns, and facilitating engagement through collaborative conversation. We also support by connecting families with resources and outside community agencies. This allows for creating the best outcomes for students with disabilities. So that's a little bit about who we are. Now, here's Brent from the middle school team.
Good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Brent Branham, and I am one of the 3 coordinating teachers that support middle schools. Tonight's session outcomes are: we will define level transitions. We will describe the purpose of transition IEP meetings and what to expect during the transition IEP meeting. We will share roles and tips to support a collaborative transition IEP meeting. We will explain events after the transition IEP meeting. And lastly, we will respond to the questions submitted. For tonight's purposes, we will focus on the level transitions your students will be facing in the upcoming school year. Level transitions can be defined just as it sounds, when a student transitions from one school level to the next. For our purposes tonight, it will be from pre-K to kindergarten, elementary to middle school, and middle school to high school. At the end of the presentation, we will also share information regarding post-secondary transitions. Transition IEP meetings occur when the IEP team meets to discuss your child's move or transition from one school level to the next. Transition IEP meetings are currently being held. So if your child will transition to the next school level and you have not yet been invited to a meeting, please expect an invitation to an IEP meeting in the near future. There are many discussion components to the transition IEP meeting. These components will look familiar, as they are also discussions that happen at your child's annual review meeting. One of the most important points of discussion will come during the special factors section, when the IEP team will address upcoming transitions and what supports may be needed as your child transitions to a new level. As a parent, you will want to share your insights on how your student will handle the upcoming school level transition. If your child is a part of the IEP meeting, they will also want to share needed supports. The team will also discuss overall strengths as well as skill deficits through the present levels of academic and functional performance. The intent is to inform the receiving IEP team of where your child is performing. The data and discussion about your child's strengths and needs will then lead the team to identify which curriculum your child will be assessing. For students turning 14 years and older, the course of study will also be identified. The course of studies for high school are Future Ready and Occupational course of study. The IEP team will review and possibly amend present levels with current data and, if necessary, amend goals and objectives specific to your child's needs. During the Transition IEP meeting, the team will determine general education and special education participation, the specific accommodations and modifications your child requires to assess his or her education, and the specially designed instruction or service delivery needed for your child to meet the goals and objectives for the next school level, since services may look different. For high school students, post-secondary transition goals and services are created starting at age 16 to improve the academic and functional achievement of the student to facilitate their movement from school to post-secondary activities. The IEP does not need to be completely rewritten in a transition IEP meeting if the team agrees that the present levels and goals remain appropriate for your child. However, the present levels and goals should be reviewed and amended, if appropriate, based on existing data. Your role in the transition IEP meeting is the same as in any other IEP meeting. You are an informed IEP team member and have as much voice in a meeting as any other team member. As the parent guardian, you know your child and are your child's best advocate. So participation in the transition IEP meeting, as well as all other IEP meetings, is essential. The IEP team will be made up of the school team that you likely already know. A representative from the next assigned school may likely also be in attendance. This will give the assigned school the opportunity to learn about your child and provide valuable input regarding programming for the next school year. Now, here is Stephanie from the high school team.
Thank you, Brent, and good evening, everybody. As Brent mentioned, I'm Stephanie Hennett, and I'm one of the 3 coordinating teachers that supports the high schools in Wake County Public School System. I'd like to move into some helpful parent tips during the transition meeting. It's important to attend and actively participate in the transition IEP meeting so you feel empowered and well informed at the end of the IEP meeting. This slide identifies some tips on how you can accomplish the outcome. Share information on how your student handles transitions. Allow your student to share how they feel about transitioning, if in attendance at the IEP meeting. It's important to empower students to advocate for themselves, so allow time for them to share their feelings. Come prepared with your questions. It's easy to get caught up in the meeting and forget your questions, so please write them down to be asked during the meeting. Take notes. There is so much information to be reviewed that taking notes will help you remember the components of the IEP meeting. Ask clarifying questions during the IEP meeting. Please do not walk away with unanswered questions. Request contact information and preferred method of communication for the case manager of your student's next assigned school. Just like there's a lot to be discussed during the IEP meeting, there's a lot that happens after the IEP meeting as well. One question that you may wonder about is busing or transportation. About a week prior to the start of school, information is typically shared with families through automated phone calls or calls from transportation. If you do not receive information or need additional information, please reach out to the school your student is assigned to ask clarifying questions. The school will be the best resource to share or give you direction regarding transportation information. The other question you might have is about your student's new school. The best place to find information about your child's school is through the school website. The website will house a host of information. everything before, after school care to high school sporting events. You can start this inquiry at any time. For middle school and high school, many schools offer summer activities to get rising 6th and 9th graders acclimated to their new learning environment. In addition to learning more about your child's school, we'd also recommend that you attend the school's open house. Please remember that open houses are to learn more about the school, courses, and teachers. Please be aware that open houses should not be used as parent conferences to protect the confidentiality of your child's private information. If you'd like to have your child attend another school, which is not your child's assigned school, please work with the Office of Student Assignment through the school transfer process. You can find information about the transfer process on the Office of Student Assignment website, which is located on the Wake County Public School System website, and searching Student Assignment. Once your student has a Power School ID number, you will be able to access a host of information. Power School allows you to see your student's assigned school, demographic information, and grades. If your student is being assigned to a regional program, you will likely be able to see the assigned school about a week after the transition IEP meeting occurs. For middle school and high school parents, Power School will also be a great resource for you to monitor your students' grades and build their awareness of keeping track of grades. This is more prevalent at the middle school and high school level than elementary. If you need assistance with how to access Power School, please reach out to your student's school and request that assistance. Prior to this session, you all had the opportunity to ask questions that you'd like answered during the session. We have broken down the questions into elementary, middle, and high school. The next couple of slides will answer some of those compiled questions. The biggest question from the rising elementary parents was about programming options at elementary schools. This is a big question with information that can fill an entire session, but this slide reflects the very basics of instructional programming options at the elementary level for students identified with a disability. All elementary schools offer cross-categorical resource, also known as CCR, instructional programming options. The specially designed instruction can be inclusive support, which is provided inside the general education classroom, or services can be small group instruction located outside of the general education classroom. All elementary schools offer a full continuum of services, meaning that some students may require minimal support from a special education teacher, and other students' needs may require more intensive individual support. At the elementary level, there are also regional programs that are not located at all elementary schools. These programs are designed for students who require more intensive instructional or behavioral support. There are regional programs that follow the standard course of study, which are cross-categorical kindergarten, also known as CCK, and our elementary behavior support classes known as EBS. Some students access the extended content standards, which is a curriculum that does not result in a high school diploma at the end of high school. The extended content standards, known as ECS, and ID Severe classes are the regional program classes that follow the extended content standards at elementary school. Some questions about middle school. Will my child change classes at middle school? Yes, the number of classes per day will depend on your middle school schedule, but your student will change classes and likely have different teachers for each class. The number of transitions your child will make during the middle school day is dependent on your child's needs. What classes will my child take in middle school? Your student will take 4 core classes: language arts, math, science, and social studies. Your student's schedule will also include electives. One elective will be health and PE. Other elective options can vary from school to school. What is a transition plan? A transition plan is a required component of an IEP starting at age 14. The focus of a transition plan is to improve the academic and functional achievement of the student to facilitate their movement from school to post-school activities, including post-secondary education, vocational education, supported employment, continuing and adult education, adult services, independent living, or community participation. Starting at age 16, transition plans must include measurable goals and transition services needed to meet those goals. The measurable goals are in the areas of employment, education and training, and when appropriate, independent living skills. What is the occupational course of study? The occupational course of study, also known as OCS, is a diploma pathway for students with a disability. This course of study is designed to prepare students for post-school employment and independent living. The occupational course of study does not satisfy the entrance requirements for any four-year university. Eligibility for participation in the occupational course of study is facilitated by the IEP team. A student should only be considered for participation if the IEP team determines that any other North Carolina course of study is not appropriate for the student, even with the use of modifications, accommodations, and supplemental aids and services. So how is my child supported after high school? During the second semester of junior year or sooner, all students with disabilities and their guardians are shared the referral information for vocational rehabilitation. Vocational rehabilitation, also known as VR, empowers young people with disabilities to explore career options, set goals for their future, and overcome challenges that they may face along the way. Services are provided at no cost for eligible students, including testing and assessments, career guidance and counseling, employment skills training, and job placements. The transition goals and services previously discussed also aid in preparing students for their post-secondary goals. If it is their chosen post-secondary education, it is also recommended that students explore services through their chosen post-secondary education institute by connecting with the Disability Services Office of the institution upon their enrollment. Thank you for your questions. And now here's Annie from the Family and Community Connections team to close us out.
Thank you, Brent and Stephanie, for providing us with a lot of valuable information. Parents, we hope that you have found this session informative and that it will be helpful for you as your child transitions into elementary, middle, and high school or beyond. If you have questions about special education services, or if we did not get the opportunity to answer a question during our session, please feel free to contact Family and Community Connections using the information on the slide.